Hey everyone. Another very busy week here on Capitol Hill that kicked off with me filing my first bill as a member of Congress. So yes, that puts a smile on my face. I am very proud to say that. And I think it's important that it meets, what I said was my number one stated goal, which was fighting for our, the waters in our community. And as you know, our coastal community, it's suffered for decades as a result of the massive freshwater discharges from Lake Okeechobee conducted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, quite often literally filled with toxic algal blooms. And while these discharges reduce the flood risk to communities south of Lake Okeechobee, they also cause considerable economic, environmental, public health harms throughout our entire community because of these algal blooms, and it shouldn't stand. The federal government, through the Corps of Engineers, they've played a major role in perpetuating this problem, but they aren't necessarily taking the responsibility for the damage that they're causing. And that to me is absolutely unacceptable. My bill, the Federal Do No Harm Act, it institutes the responsibility so that the state of Florida and the local governments can receive assistance that they need in the aftermath of these emergencies that are created. Now, last year, if you're not aware, Florida, Governor Scott twice requested from the president and was twice denied a federal emergency declaration. And this week, I had the opportunity to ask former FEMA administrator, his name's Craig Fugate, about why this happened at a hearing that we were having on one of my subcommittees, the Emergency and Management Subcommittee that I sit on. And his response was very, very clear that if Congress wants algal blooms to be considered as a federal emergency, then Congress should amend the Stafford Act. And that's what this piece of legislation that I've been writing has been all about. And that's exactly what we do with the Federal Do No Harm Act. And we get that into the Stafford Act. So over the coming weeks and months, I'm going to be continually working hard to get this bill passed. So that we can move on and have something done great in that realm. I'm also going to be working on a number of different angles to address the algal problems that we have. There's no doubt that this bill would help, but we also need to prevent the problem from occurring in the first place, and that's what we'll be tackling in the next set of bills that you see coming forward to us to support efforts like SB 10 on the state level. I think we have some great ways to go out there and support that. Excuse me, sorry, something in my throat today. And another big piece of news this week, there was quite frankly, something pretty alarming that came out, and that was a report in the news that the previous administration had released and dropped charges on Iranians who posed significant threats to national security while the administration was pursuing a very misguided nuclear agreement. Some of Iran's most serious nuclear proliferators are the ones who were released, people that had literally, decades, some of them decades-long investigations going on them, and they were dropped. There's no doubt that Iran has continued its dangerous march towards a nuclear weapon. And as we're also seeing Russia blatantly violate the INF Treaty, North Korea threaten war with us, the idea that the administration would knowingly undermine our counterproliferation effort is, to me, very, very stunning. Releasing nuclear proliferators makes the world, it makes America less safe. It sends a terrible message in this climate that we're facing right now. And it's something that I take very seriously. As most of you know, I spent my career, my life as a bomb technician. I've looked very specifically. I'd stood on top of nuclear weapons. This is a threat that I take very, very seriously and one that I've studied in depth. And I think it's part of the reason that I sit on the Foreign Affairs Committee that is responsible for nonproliferation. So this week, I wrote a letter with the Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Ed Royce, to Secretary of State Tillerson, and to Attorney General Sessions, calling on the administration to, in a much more aggressive way, investigate and indict and extradite those that are involved in supplying Iran's nuclear program. We need to do everything that we can to undo the damage that's been caused to global security by the last administration and those actions, and prevent Iran from attaining nuclear weapons in this, and this is really a big piece of that. Shifting gears a little bit, I want to touch on a couple of other items that you may have heard about in recent news. One of the issues that's been talked about a lot recently is sanctuary cities, and it's hitting very close to home for us. I consider it to be absolutely wrong to ignore the federal rule of law. We are a sovereign nation with borders that should be respected, and these reckless sanctuary policies that are putting our federal and local law enforcement officers at risk, it's a terrible thing to me. Recently, I've sat in my office speaking to agents, federal agents, who expressed very specifically that when they are violently attacked while conducting immigration operations, the attackers aren't being charged for attacking them. These are things that they're not being charged for. And I've been continuing to have conversations with both local and federal agencies about the steps that we can take to enforce the rule of law, not just in our community, but throughout the country. And this is, again, it's something that I take very, very seriously. Beyond this, President Trump has also this week announced his outline for tax reform this week. This includes tax cuts for American families, for small businesses, doubling the standard deduction for anybody, while also ensuring that the United States remains competitively, globally attractive to get the best workers and the best paying jobs. I think it's a great blueprint. There's still a lot of details to work out here, but certainly a great blueprint. I'm also dedicated to what I can say for me, reducing the tax burden on Florida families by cutting wasteful spending. This is something that I've seen firsthand as a result of working within a number of federal agencies throughout my time. The waste of your dollars, the dollars that you send to Washington year after year, it's something that I think is probably the most despicable thing that can occur, is to waste the work of your hands and the fruits of your labor. So in that, you're going to see me continually working for a fairer tax code. Just because somebody has resources, that doesn't mean that they should be able to avoid the tax system. And that's unfortunately what's happened far too often. My standard for success is that you are taxed less and that you get to do more with your money instead of the federal government getting to do more with your money and you having to do less. The federal government needs to do more with less. That's how I look at it. We need a tax code that eliminates lobbyist loopholes. We need one, that benefits everybody and that helps hardworking families and incentivizes American innovation and small business growth instead of driving companies overseas. We need a tax code that allows American families to keep the money that they earn, which will in turn stimulate the economy and lead to more investment. And this is an exciting time for that. I think tax reform, comprehensive tax reform, and putting more money in your pocket is one of the greatest accomplishments that we could possibly do. And so, yeah, I'm very excited about that. Now, Congress has also passed this week a short-term budget extension on Friday to avoid government shutdown. There's no doubt that we need long-term structural reforms to fix the problems that exist within Washington and budgeting. There shouldn't be short-term fixes. It should be individual spending bills, in my opinion, that look at every bit of what's being spent out there and making sure that we're doing it in an accountable way. But this bill, it was needed to ensure that the doors of government stay open for you and that we continue to work towards a long-term stable solution for what's going on with spending. And this is something that in terms of a short term, this is basically we're looking at a week-long continuation here and seeing everything else worked out throughout this next week of being in session. Finally, last thing that I want to say is, finally, I know many of you have been following the healthcare conversation very, very closely. I've been taking a look at the new proposals that are out there, and I'll just say this. There's no doubt that we need to reform our healthcare systems. I could look at every single individual in my office and draw a chart for the way that their premiums have gone up, the way that their deductibles have gone up, the way that their cost of living has gone up because of year over year over year, what has happened to them as a result of the ACA. And this is something that I know is happening to people across our community, and it's unsustainable. And that said, I daily am wading through all of the legislation that's being proposed, all of the amendments, every bit of wording that comes out, word by word. I'm wading through it, with my legislative staff here, and try to get to the bottom of what is good and what is not good and what is unpalatable, and try to get to the best solution. To address one concern that I've heard frequently, one of the first lessons that I learned in the military was this: you never ask your men to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. That is a pinnacle trait of good leadership. And likewise, I am never going to ask something of the American people to do something that members of Congress wouldn't do. So, I'm going to ensure that members of Congress are held to the same standard when it comes to health care. It's never going to be anything that I ever falter on with that or anything else. I'm never going to allow something to not be layered on Congress that is layered on anybody else. So as we move forward with these conversations, I'm going to continue talking with people in our community, and I hope that you'll continue to reach out with your thoughts as well, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's with phone calls, with letters or emails that you send in, whatever it is. I see them, I look at them, I read them. Many of you can probably attest to the fact that I get back to you personally. Often if you send in your phone number on a piece of correspondence, I will try to take the time to call you personally. As you can imagine, we get a lot of those, so I do get a little bit backed up in that, so I hope you'll bear with me on that. But I absolutely believe that working together in a bipartisan fashion, it's the best way to achieve these goals and to put our country on the path towards long-term economic growth. And together, we can change the status quo in Washington. I believe that. If we work together, we can change the status quo here, and we can get our nation's finances back on track, and we can help struggling families around the country, and that has to be the goal. It's my goal. So as always, thank you. It's an honor to represent you in Congress, and I hope you all have a great week.